right. And then there were these girls there whom I'll never forget. These young girls, they were deaf and blind, and they're still getting a dog to be independent. Now, look, it's one thing when you just meet someone on the street and you hear how rough they have it, but when you live with someone and see their challenges firsthand for an entire month, for 26 days, it really changes how you think about things. I learned at that moment during that experience that happiness is not some fuzzy feeling that you get. It's not an emotion that you feel. It's a perspective. It's a decision that you choose to take on a given situation.
Hey friends, welcome to Rugged. Young adulting is tough, and I'm here to show you how to make it easy. You'll learn mindset strategies to harness your thoughts and emotions in ways that help you achieve your goals. I'm your host, Trey Tucker, so let's dive right in. Chad Foster went blind when he was 21, and yet he still went on to achieve amazing things. He started multiple businesses, he wrote a book, he's a speaker now, he helps people build resilience through circumstances that seem insurmountable. Dude's an inspiration. I think you're really going to enjoy the conversation. Let's dive in.
Sounds good. So I had a fairly unusual upbringing, I guess you would say. It was kind of normal in some ways. I could see pretty well at that point in my life. I could play sports. I played football, played basketball, rode a bicycle, rode jet skis, eventually ended up driving a car. But when I was 3 years old, my parents noticed that I had a hard time seeing in the dark. And so they took me to Duke University, where they diagnosed me with retinitis pigmentosa, or RP for short. Now, RP is an inherited eye disease that gradually deteriorates the rods and the cones in the retina, potentially causing permanent eyesight loss, which is where I'm at today. Now, they told me at some point I could go blind. They told my parents. My parents were there at Duke, and the doctors told them that they should put me in a special school for the blind. But instead, my parents, being my parents, signed me up for soccer. And so that began my childhood dealing with this inherited eye disease, really rare eye disease. And so they put me in soccer because I could see well enough to see the ball, could chase the ball pretty easily, could see during the day, didn't have games at night like football had. That made that more challenging, playing the games at night. And so I grew up learning the limitations of my eyesight, what I couldn't see, by bouncing off of things. I used the world as my cane, essentially. I was in the hospital so much that the people at the hospital started questioning me and my parents in separate rooms as to whether or not they were beating me. And the truth is, they weren't beating me. I just did not know what I couldn't see when I couldn't see it. So the way that I found out that something was there was by bouncing off of it. So I ended up with lots of stitches and broken bones, and pretty much had our own parking spot at the hospital. And all that stuff was pretty uncomfortable, as you can imagine, physically. And then get into high school. Socially, it's uncomfortable. I can't drive at night like a lot of my friends could. It made it hard for me. Couldn't play all the sports that I wanted to play. That was socially uncomfortable, and that was bad. Then in college, it got a lot worse. So I was studying in college to go into the medical field because I wanted to help other people. And then I ended up going completely blind at roughly 21 years old. It was a process, but I realized at 21 years old, I couldn't see to complete my literature class, couldn't see the reading assignment under a bright lamp. And so I realized at that point, the gig was up, right? Everything that they'd been warning me about could happen was coming to fruition. We ask kids all the time what they want to be when they grow up. And guess what? None of them, and I mean none of them, said they want to be blind. So it was pretty tough. I had to mourn the death of my imagined future self, grieve the loss of what I wanted to be, what I thought I was going to be when I grew up, figure out what I wanted to be now. Didn't even know what I could be, let alone what I wanted to be. And that was a pretty dark time. That was at roughly 21 years old. Shortly after that, I went to get my first guide dog at 23 years old at Leader Dogs for the Blind in Rochester Hills, Michigan. And it was there where I had a really incredible, life-changing experience. I was there. I roll in on campus up there. You go there for 26 days, and I roll in. I've got this kind of pathetic attitude. Poor me. Life sucks. This is BS. I got cheated. None of my friends are blind. None of my friends are dealing with disability. I grew up with friends who weren't dealing with any of those things. And I roll into campus there with this poor me victim mentality. And boy, some stuff hit me in the face pretty hard there. I was there on site with, I don't know, about 20 or 30 people. A lot of them had far worse conditions than what I had. Some of them had mental impairments on top of being blind. Some of them were on dialysis because they had diabetes that had also taken their eyesight. And then there were these girls there whom I'll never forget. These young girls, they were deaf and blind, and they're still getting a dog to be independent. Now, look, it's one thing when you just meet someone on the street and you hear how rough they have it, but when you live with someone and see their challenges firsthand for an entire month, for 26 days, it really changes how you think about things. I learned at that moment during that experience that happiness is not some fuzzy feeling that you get. It's not an emotion that you feel. It's a perspective. It's a decision that you choose to take on a given situation. And I learned at that point a really important lesson that it's not happiness that brings us gratitude. It's gratitude that brings us happiness. So almost on the spot, Trey, almost on the spot, I flipped the script. My attitude completely changed because I was grateful for what I've been given. Because I was, picture this, I'm training with these people, getting a guide dog. And, I'm blind. I'd just gone blind. I'm getting the harness handle of the dog and walking into the street, crossing traffic or whatever. And I'm a 23-year-old dude, 200-pound man, could see for, 20 something years, could hear all that, had all my faculties other than not being able to see anymore. These girls, they were doing the same thing without being able to see or hear and had never seen or never heard. Like, the living courage that these people had made me ashamed of my victim mentality. So it literally blew all the self pity out of my system on the spot. So I come back to university, have a new attitude, have to relearn how to learn. Turns out I'm a better blind student than sighted student. Who would have seen that coming? Ended up making straight A's at that point forward. My mom reads all the books for me because there was no digital books back then. So my mom literally read every single one of my business books to audio cassette for me. And for those who don't know
Oh
what
my
a cassette
goodness.
is, you can go to Google and Google one of those things. They're probably in the Smithsonian by now, as old as the dinosaurs there. But it's what we used to use to get audio back in the day. And so I would listen to the book twice that my mom had read to cassette. I would listen to the recorded lectures twice, and I ended up developing a new learning system because I had to relearn how to learn, and ended up making straight A's from that point forward, made the dean's list, and went on to work for a top consulting firm. So I go into technology, and not everything works for me out of the box. So I teach myself how to write code so that I can engineer my own software just so I can do my job. And so that leads to the ability for me to perform my job at a high level. I was better at working with the technology transactions I was working on because I understood technology better because I was so dependent on technology. And from there, yeah, I've been into various roles. I won't go into all of it, but I went from being a consultant at a top consulting firm to doing market intelligence to doing pricing on commercial outsourcing deals. These were multi-billion dollar tech services transactions with large corporations. Went in from there into the defense IT, selling large programs to the U.S. federal government. Some of those three-letter agencies that you do or don't read about, can't confirm or deny them. And ended up getting a lot of promotions there. Was a senior director of pricing strategy and solutions when I was there at SRA, and did so well, brought in over 45 billion in contracts. They decided that they wanted to reward me, and for some crazy reason I asked them to write a six-figure check and send me to Harvard, and for some crazier reason they agreed. So I got to go do the Harvard Business School experience because of my track record in corporate. And that's when I had another impact moment for me, I guess you'd call it, tipping point moment, where I realized that I should be doing more with my situation because I was studying with Bill George there. He's an executive fellow. He teaches the True North Leadership Framework. He used to be the chairman and CEO of Medtronic, which is the world's largest medical supply company. And he talks about how to find your true north. And it has a lot to do with connecting hard moments in your formative years to what you do on a day-to-day basis. And when you do that, it gives new meaning to what you've gone through. And it occurred to me at that point that I'd never really done anything with my blindness. And so, as fate would have it, I was elected as our graduating speaker. I thought I would be. For whatever reason, I had this unmistakable feeling that I would be. So I did what most type A people do. I flew to Houston, Met with a professional speaker, wrote a 12-minute keynote, spent a lot of money for something that didn't even exist. My wife kind of thought I'd lost my mind, and I kind of agreed with her. Maybe I had, and as as uh, as fate would have it, I was nominated and then elected as our graduating speaker, and I saw firsthand the power of sharing my story. And there was some people there whom I'll never forget. One of the guys comes up to me afterwards, and he's literally breaking down in my arms because something I'd said helped him. Now, I later found out that this particular parent, this gentleman, had lost a daughter the year before to cancer, and something I'd said had helped him.
Mm.
Now, I'm not normally a real soft and fuzzy person. I've been through some hard stuff. I've got, a hard edge to me naturally, plus what my circumstances have brought me. But when you've got a parent like that just bawling in your arms because you said something that helped them, it's real,
Mm.
man. It changes you, and it totally changed me. I went from being focused purely on corporate performance to shifting what I focus on, and now I want to help empower people so that they don't have to feel like victims of whatever's going on in their life, so that they can ignite their full potential. And so that's when I started building the speaking business, and I wrote my first book, and just all of that, the coaching, the speaking, the master class, all those things. Now I do all of that. I walked away from corporate last year, and built a business around this because I want to do a little more than just helping companies make money. I still get to help companies make money now, but I do it by empowering people, and so the people get to help their
Mm.
organizations as well. But it feels really, really purpose driven work. It feels like it's really purposeful, and it's hard to describe the fulfillment you get when you empower somebody because of the biggest struggle in your own life. It gives it new meaning.
Wow. All right, there is so much I want to go back and ask you, but let's dive into what you just said. You said the word purpose, and you said you actually essentially you switched your purpose from making as much money as you possibly can to impacting as
Yeah.
many people as you can through your story. How
Yeah.
much fulfillment do you have now versus how much compare the fulfillment from the money versus the impact?
You think y- we're caught up in this culture, Trey, that we look at this trophy case driven culture, right? How many trophies can I put in my trophy case? We're all,
Mhm.
we all fall prey to it. It's the way that we're wired. And hey, it's there's nothing wrong with having goals. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that goals are a bad thing, but there's more to it than that. There's more to it than, hey, what's my job title? Or hey, how many people am I managing? Or what's my P&L size? Or all these things that society tells us are really important. When you connect with and help another person on a really personal level, it's not even in the same universe as going
Mm.
for all the recognition. And
Mm.
the interesting thing is that, you know, a lot of times when you're doing something that is your purpose, all that other stuff comes, the trophies come, the money comes, but it's not the main purpose. I've got to feed my kids and send my kids to school and all that. I still have to, I have to make money and do all that. And as a speaker, I'm able to do even better speaking than I was in corporate. And that wasn't the intention, but the intention was to try and help people to move beyond myself in service of the people around me. And now that I'm doing what is my life's purpose, my life work, all those other things are coming with greater frequency. It's really amazing.
Mm. It is amazing because you essentially gave up, at least probably on the front end. You thought maybe you might be giving up some financial opportunities, but instead, when you put serving first, the money followed.
I'm gonna use a metaphor. It's a little bit of a lead too, but this definitely feels like jumping out of an airplane when you're walking away from this nice, secure corporate job, VP level job at a Fortune 15 company. Yeah. And then just saying, I think I'm done. Thank you. And just, I'm going to try this other thing that I feel is my calling. It definitely was a leap of faith for sure.
All right, so you gotta tell us 'cause I know your story enough to know, but tell everybody else, the skydiving and, other physical adventures that you've embarked on since losing your sight.
Yeah, so I was a little bit of a lead there on the skydiving. I went skydiving last September. My wife and I were in Dubai. I was giving a keynote there at the Museum of the Future for a large technology company there in Dubai. And so we went skydiving over the Palm Island there, which was pretty cool. Had a really good time doing that. And I'm not going to lie to you, I was scared doing it. Who jumps off of a perfectly good plane? Evidently, we do. Uh, my wife gives me a hard time because I'm the blind dude who also fights in jiu-jitsu tournaments. I'm the blind dude who also
Yep.
skis on a black diamond and sometimes double black diamonds without being able to see. So I'm not a fearful person, but when I was on that plane with my parachute ready to go, man, you could see it on my face, or so I'm told. Because, and I'm assuming it's true because I definitely felt it. I'm not going to sit here and tell you, oh, I wasn't scared. Oh, it was great. No, I was terrified. I was absolutely
Yeah.
terrified, and
Yeah.
you could tell that I was scared because I was knowingly, willingly jumping out of a perfectly good plane. And
Yep.
yeah, but it was incredible. It was a really great experience, and that's the reason why, it's why I want to do those things, is, not to be careless, but to face the fears, because when you face your fears, then your fears can't own you anymore. And that's why
Mm.
I started not just training in jiu-jitsu. So I started training in jiu-jitsu about 3 years ago, and I did it because I wanted to spend time with the kids, wanted to have some activity to spend with them. So if you think about it, I can't teach them how to shoot a jump shot anymore. I can't teach them how to kick a soccer ball anymore. My technique's off. I'm lacking a little hand-eye coordination, if you know what I mean. So what am I going to do? Well, I found Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It's all hands-on, scrappling. It's no striking, which is good for me because I would just end up being the punching bag. But I can't teach them how to shoot a jump shot anymore, Trade. But I can teach them how to throw a leg triangle, or to do a sweep,
Mm.
or how to defend themselves. So I can show them techniques that we learn on the mat in jiu-jitsu, and so we get to spend time together. But one of the cool things about jiu-jitsu is it forces you to be very relaxed when things aren't going well. You get in a
Mhm.
bad position, a 250-pound black belt takes your back. Not a great place to be. He's trying to choke you. You're trying to not be choked. So it's not a great position when somebody takes your back. But what it teaches you over time, and this doesn't happen on day one, this takes time, but it teaches you that if you can just stay calm, and if you can just breathe,
Mhm.
relax, don't tense up. A lot of times you can
Mhm.
find a crack in what that person is doing. You can find a little window to get out of it. But if you're panicked and you're breathing heavily and your heart rate's up and your body's stiff because you're panicking, you can't feel the opportunity. You can't feel the window, and you get
Mm.
choked out. And that
Alright,
is
I'm so
so highly transferable, whether or not you're fighting somebody or not. You don't have to be fighting somebody. Maybe something at work or something in your personal life feels like it has you in a chokehold. See, the more comfortable you get with discomfort, the more your comfort zone starts to expand. And that's because you're
Mm.
expanding. The only way that you can ever grow is to get comfortable with discomfort, to get out of your comfort zone. And so that's why I love going to the gym and training in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. That's why I get on a pair of skis and go down a black diamond and sometimes a double black. I want to grow. I want to figure out, like, I want to push my limits. And I think I'm
Mm.
here where I'm at today largely because my life has been so uncomfortable, from bumping into things early on to not being able to drive at night socially. That was uncomfortable, to having to reinvent myself, figuring out what I wanted to be when I grew up, going into technology, learning how to write code, going into a boardroom or a job interview with a 100-pound German Shepherd. That's not comfortable. Traveling to China by yourself with just a seeing eye dog. That's not comfortable.
Oh,
Still getting up at 5 a.m. to go get your workout in, just to, when you don't know the hotel, can't find the machinery, all that stuff's uncomfortable. But I think the reason that I'm here where I'm at today is because I've just been forced to be uncomfortable. Everything's been uncomfortable. And so now I crave discomfort. So I do crazy things like, go to a
mm.
tournament and compete in jiu-jitsu because I'm scared of it. My wife looks at me like, "Why are you going to go do
Mm,
that? And it's couldn't you get hurt?" Yeah, I probably could. And that's why I want to go do it. Not because I could get hurt, but because I don't want the fear to live rent free in my mind for the rest of my life. I'm not competing against that other
yeah.
person. I'm competing against the fear in my head. That's my opponent.
Mm,
And if I beat that opponent regularly, the guy on the other side of the mat doesn't stand a chance in the long run. You know what I mean?
mm.
It's like your
Oh,
biggest
man.
enemy oftentimes is you. How do you beat that voice inside your head so that it doesn't dominate you and prevent you from going for what you want out of life?
Okay, let's talk about that voice inside your head, because a few minutes ago, I heard you say that you learned how to make your body get calm and to use my language, make your nervous system get calm. I work with a lot of athletes on that premise and
Yeah.
other folks who
Yeah.
are trying to perform in the moment. And the
Yep.
ones who are able to really succeed can figure out the ways to calm their nervous system. So, how did you learn it
Yep.
through all those moments of discomfort, and what tips could you give to other people?
Well, the most important thing is to control your breathing, first of all. If your breathing is out of whack, then everything else is out of whack. If you're breathing
Mhm.
heavily, uncontrollably, you're never going to get control of your heart rate. Your heart rate will
Mm,
follow your breathing. And so it starts with mastering your breathing and like being able to get conscious awareness of your body. Pay attention to what's going on. You know, when you're on the mat,
mm,
when you start in jujitsu, I'll just go with that because it's very concrete. When you start in jujitsu, you panic at first. It's normal, but you keep going to it. It takes repetitions to learn to settle down into uncomfortable things and get relaxed. You can't just go, "Oh, I'm going to be relaxed this time," and then you be relaxed.
mm.
That's not how it works.
Yeah.
You can tell yourself that all you want, and you should. You should tell yourself that because one of my pillars of resilience, the second one is tell yourself the right stories because you become your story. So you can't go into that situation going, "I'm going to freak out." Like that's probably not good because you will freak out. So you've got to tell yourself that you're going to be comfortable, but don't get too hard on yourself when you don't initially. You're
Mm.
dealing with not only your mind, but in this case, you're dealing with your body, your nervous system, your circulatory system, all these things and they all have to be trained. They all have to be acclimated to being in a really bad situation. Most of us don't feel very comfortable when it feels like our head's being inserted into a vacuum cleaner bag, you know? It takes a little bit of time to get comfortable with that. I could tell you, "Hey, don't panic, just breathe calmly." And then I take your back and start choking you, you're going to panic because just it's what most people do. You've got to go to that place over and over and over and get the reps and learn to relax in it. But you can't just say it,
Yeah.
wish it, and hope it, and it show up.
Right. It's not an instant flip of a switch. And in that answer, I'm hearing you say you give yourself the breathing techniques and the practice it takes to get there, and then also give yourself some grace to know that this is not going to
Absolutely.
be instantaneous. Were there messages early on that you would try to repeat to yourself as you were breathing to try to get that message fully into your from your head to your nervous system?
I don't know that it was as much a message as, but it's really important for the exhale to be longer than your inhale. I know that's kind of common knowledge, at least in my sphere. I don't know if it is for you who's listening right now, but the way that you calm your nerves is breathe in for a count of four and hold for a count of four and exhale for a count of six. If you really want to bring your heart rate down. Now, you can't really do all that when somebody's trying to choke you, but what you can do is try and breathe out longer than what you breathe in to get all the carbon
Mm,
dioxide out of the system, which helps you stabilize the central nervous system.
yeah. And I would think after all this time of being uncomfortable, whether through what life threw at you or through what you had to do out of necessity or through what you chose to do with some of these activities like jujitsu or skydiving or all the other physical adventures, you've had probably millions of reps to teach your body, hey, we can do this and we're going to be okay on the other side of it.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't start like I wouldn't recommend if, you're sitting there listening to this and you don't work out, or you're uncomfortable with the idea of working out, or anything, I wouldn't recommend like going signing up for fighting class. That's probably not the place to start. you know
Right.
you you want to take it like, when I learned to ski, what did I do? Well, okay, I got to learn how to get the bindings on, and after that I've got to figure out, okay, let's go to the magic carpet, and how does this work getting on and off the lift, and okay, I can get on and off the lift now. Let's go to a green and then a blue, and you keep taking on little bit by little bit, but you got to start where you are. Start where you are, not where you want to be. You want, and this, my third pillar of resilience, is visualize your greatness. And so this is all about painting a big scary goal, big scary, like inspiring goal, like, oh my gosh, that moves me to take action, that moves me to get up and do the hard work that I need to do. I had to figure out how to make blind look good. It's a little tongue in cheek, but it's true, it's real. If I couldn't figure out how to make blind look good, how could I ever move towards acceptance? Well, the short answer is I could not. It's just not possible. So I needed a bold vision of greatness for me. Well, you got to have that bold vision of greatness, but your next action should not be bold. You don't want to start off where the stakes are so high that failing destroys you, destroys your will. Start off with something that you can succeed with. It's more important here to have these small successes that continue to breed confidence, because that creates more action, and it's the action that drives your outcomes. And so, yeah, set a big goal, but don't make the next thing you do be so big, scary, and with so many consequences that it's going to destroy you if it doesn't come to fruition. Start off low, like start on the going back to the ski metaphor. Just get your bindings on first. Get comfortable in the
Mm.
skis, and then go to the magic carpet, and you keep doing that. Before you know it, you'll be on the black.
Yeah. And to add to that, if you take off or if you're trying to take too big of a jump at first, you might just get frozen and just get
Yeah.
panicked and not take any steps at all, get overwhelmed.
Well, exactly, exactly. If using the skiing metaphor, a lot of people I talk to, they wouldn't ski because what they see. They look at that big, scary black diamond, and it freezes them. They do the same thing. They're looking at
Mm,
the entire mountain, the big, scary goal. And if you think about me skiing blindly, what am I focused on? I'm not focused on any of that. All I'm focused on is making the next right turn, and then the next left
mm,
turn, and then the next right turn. I'm not looking at the big scary goal. All these other folks, they're looking at, oh my gosh, we've got 5,000 feet of elevation. We've got this level of pitch. We've got rocks. We've got double fall lines or trees. Oh my goodness, what's going on? I don't see any of that. All I'm just
mm.
focused on is like, I don't have to ski 5,000 feet of elevation. I just got to make a left turn, and then a right turn, and then another left. And so when you break it down in those bite-sized steps, that's how you execute. You want the bold vision to inspire you, but yeah, got to break it down into bite-sized steps so that it feels doable. You can build some confidence, and to your point, it doesn't intimidate you.
Yeah, doesn't intimidate you. Can we go way back to you said the switch for you realizing that happiness was a choice and a perspective. You
Yep.
said that happened in an instant just from seeing some of the girls that were in the school with you or just actually being around them and knowing their experience? Is that true that just was instant?
Um, I don't know if I would say, okay. So instant, as in during that one trip, that 26-day trip. Was it on impact? I mean, like instant, like literally instant, like within a split second? No. Um, it
Right.
was not, because I was experiencing these people and what they went through on a day to day basis over the course of 26 days, and the more I
Mm,
witnessed their hardships, their challenges, their grace, their determination, their courage, like it was real, and I
mm,
could imagine what it was like for them to go through that, and that was pretty scary. It was terrifying. So no, was it
mm.
in 1 second? No, but it was instant in terms of one lived experience for 26 days at the dog guide training school there.
Yeah, essentially a crash course, and I keep thinking as I hear your story that one of the things that holds most people back is disappointment. And when they're
Mhm.
stuck, if they can somehow move through the disappointment, they can start to see the big goal or the purpose or the vision and then start to plan out some of the steps. But if they're stuck in the disappointment or the pity or the sadness or the shock, there's just nowhere to go. So how would you help somebody move through disappointment? Is it a grief process? Is it something else?
Well, I think it has phases. I think, anytime you're dealing with something, you've got to give it its time to ventilate. It's normal to be disappointed. It's normal, yeah, to be sad. I'm not sitting here saying you don't have the right to be sad about stuff. Yeah, I was sad. I grieved. There was a time for that. There was a season for that. But there's a point to where healthy emotional ventilation starts to get into rumination. And that creates
Mm.
vicious cycles that you can't get out of. And I personally don't want to live in a vicious cycle of pity and sadness and despair and not getting what I want out of my life. Now, I realized
Mm.
that thankfully at 23 years old that I couldn't just sit around feeling sorry for myself for the rest of my life. I mean, that's like 50, 60 years of sorry, man. That's way too much sorry. You know what I'm saying? It's like, who wants to do that?
Yes. Right.
I didn't get to sign up for my eye condition, but hey, I also didn't get to sign up for having a family who would watch out for me, or being born in the United States, or being born, you know, in the 90s, coming into the dawn of the information age in my 20s, and services economy, and like all these things that all of us take for granted. I mean, do people really stop and think about, wow, I'm born in one of the most opportunistic times in recent history? Like the amount of hardship we face, this back up 300 years ago. We had people coming over to the
Mm.
United States. Man, they had wooden teeth. You know what I mean? They didn't have GPS systems
Right.
and maps and phones, and they literally had like wooden teeth. They went into surgery, drank some alcohol, had stuff dug out of it. It was pretty barbaric what they had to go through. And here we are. Like, I mean, unemployment rates with 4%. Like the biggest thing for us, okay, you're doing pretty well when the biggest problem you have as a country is people are eating too much food. Like we're overweight. Okay, that's a pretty good spot to be. Years ago, the people didn't have enough food. Now we've got too much food. We've got so, so people don't stop and reflect on that. And that situation there at Leader Dogs, when I was 23 years old, forced me to do that because I was looking at their situation, going, "Wow, what if I'd been dealt those cards? What if I'd been
Mm.
dealt, a different card, different country, different century, worse? We don't get to choose that." But
Mm.
you alone get to choose how you show up. We don't get to choose our cards, but you alone get to choose how you play your cards. That's your decision. That's your
Mm.
choice. None of us are responsible for all of our circumstances, but we've got to be accountable for our lives and for our outcomes. Because at the end of the day, I'm blind and this is my life, but I've got to own it. And that's your life. You've got to own it. If you don't own your life, who will?
Mm. Wow. Taking ownership, changing perspectives, and then you said something that I think would be easy to skip over. You said
Hmm.
stop and pause and reflect.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
man, that's powerful because in this fast-paced world, I don't know how many of us even have the chance to stop and reflect, and how many fewer of us will choose to take that time to reflect. So I'm so glad you said that.
yeah. We get caught up in our thinking brain so much, right? We're just going, going, going all the time, and
Yeah.
so busy focused on what's going on around us that we don't have a clue what's going on inside us.
Mm.
And when you slow
Yeah.
things down, you get to know yourself. What's going on.
Mm.
But if we're always so busy
Yeah.
distracting ourselves with smartphones and social media and movies, and we've got enough content, I mean, it's coming out of our ears. I think people are,
Yeah.
I don't know, it might be hard for people to sit with just themselves in today's time. I mean, what if somebody said, all right, I'm going to take your phone, I'm going to unplug your TV, turn off the radio. I just want you to sit there for 30 minutes. Most people would lose their minds, right? Most people would have
Uh-huh.
a really
You
hard
talk
time
about
with
pushing
that.
through fear.
Yeah, but the truth is, it's one of the healthiest things that you can do. Literally, like 2, 3 times a day, do that. It's incredible.
Yes. It is incredible,
You
and yeah, so many people I talk to say that's the scariest thing they could conceive doing is sitting alone with themselves for even 2 minutes, much less anything longer.
You do have to work up to 30. Yeah, I will say that. It's hard to do it the first, I started off at 1 or 2, and like we're talking about with the skiing, right? Start at 1 or 2, get up to 5, bump to 10, 15. If you can do 20, you can do 30. But yeah, it takes a minute. It's I could see why people are scared of that in the society we live in. You and I don't know how old you are, Trey, but I mean, I grew up before smartphones, before the internet. We had like
Yeah.
telephones that if you called somebody's telephone, you had number one, you had to know their number because there was no phone book really. I mean, not a digital phone book. Like, you had to have everybody's number memorized, and if you called, they were talking to somebody, it was busy, and that was literally the only way you could get in touch with that person unless you got in a car and just went to go visit them. So we didn't have all those distractions. That's my point. And that makes it
Yeah,
easier for us to
absolutely.
do that. People who grew up where their normal has been, oh, iPhone, boom. Ever since I've been around, there's been an iPhone or the internet or whatever. They've grown up with it, so it's going to be extremely hard for those folks to be able to separate and really go to that quiet space.
Absolutely. Hey, in the couple minutes we have left, will you give us just a
Yeah.
brief overview of your business career? Because I know that's an amazing part of your story as well. And I want to have you on again so that you can go even further into it, but at least give us
Okay.
the Spark Notes summary.
Business career. Well, I built software that Oracle couldn't figure out how to do for one of their own pieces of software, and I did it without being able to see. I was evidently the only person in the world who was able to do that for a while, so they started referring me business. The downside to that is I did get called to testify in a court case for it, but this was, I had my own company that I built writing software code. I mentioned earlier that I taught myself how to write code to do my job really well in corporate when I was a technologist, and so ended up, getting kind of good at it and doing that for other companies and organizations, and that's actually how we got our first vacation home. But I've done some stuff. I led large deals. I did the pricing, the financial modeling of those, the strategy. So picture, a $5 billion deal. My team and my job was to, and we like I would work on deals and they would work on other deals. But basically, you go out and you research the deal, read thousands of pages of data, congressional reports, figure out what the right information is, like reverse engineer what your competitors are going to do, understand the award tendencies, and like basically put together a not only a financial package but a staffing and all that. What's it going to take to win this work and why? And so I was pretty good at that. I could hand basically our engineers something to write to. So I would do the staffing estimates. I would do the how much we'd pay all the people, what the profits, all that. What's the total price? What's the strategy? Why is this the right price? How are we going to make money on it? What's the pre-sale strategy, the point of sale strategy, and the post-sales execution strategy? So I led a team and that's what we did. And you take all that and boil it down to 5 slides, and why do we need to do what you want us to do? And I was pretty good at that. That paid the bills for a while. That's the company that sent me to Harvard, and then after that, I went on to Red Hat, worked at Red Hat, led the global deal desk there, brought in the largest deal in that company's history when I was there. It was a big telco deal at Red Hat. Then I was shifted into lead the corporate finance team when IBM was buying us in the largest software acquisition ever. It was $34 billion that IBM paid for Red Hat when I was there, and I was leading the team who closed that deal. And then um, after that, I went back into sales at Red Hat, helped out with deal structuring there, and yeah, then after that, decided to go into doing this full time. So trying to help other people with what I've learned. I kind of had this nagging sensations. For years I've been wondering, like, how am I here? How'd this happen?
Mm.
This really, is not highly probable. It's not a highly probable thing. And that kept nagging at me for a while. I was like, how did I get here? Because, you're looking at the
Mm.
statistics, bell curve, I shouldn't be here. I should probably be unhappy with my situation at least, right? Or something different than where I'm at. And so I just started unpacking that. What did I have to do to go from being a victim of going blind at 21 years old to being
Yeah.
better off than before, being happier, being more successful, kind of feeling unstoppable, really? Like whatever I want, I don't feel is out of reach. And what did it take for me to move my mindset? Because man, if you had met me in my 20s, Trey, it was a bad situation, man. I was in a dark place.
Mm.
I was in a dark place, and
Mm.
I'm not just saying because I was blind. That's true, but it was hard. There were some hard moments, man. Hard moments when you come to the realization that you're 21 and you can't see. Like,
Mm.
what are you going to do? Are you going to be on,
Yeah.
Social Security for the rest of your life? Who's gonna have to take care of you? All these things. Like
Mm.
it's a bleak feeling. It's a bleak feeling.
Mm.
So I don't mean to minimize the severity of that. It was a very challenging situation, but I managed to make it through it. And how did I make it through it? Well, I talk about that in my book, Blind Ambition, and I talk about that on stage in my keynotes. And now I've just launched a master
Mm.
class where I break down information in 34 lessons, I think, 3.5, 4 hours of content, complete with workbooks, excuse me, digital things that people can keep track of, their reflections and all of that. Because I don't know. I figure if it can help me navigate that, it's got to be able to help some other folks out there navigate some of the things that they're going through.
Mm. So powerful. Chad, I'm so thankful for you. So many people right now in the world are looking for guidance and mentoring, and they can tell when someone's really been through something hard because you can just
Yeah.
notice that they've not only been through the hard parts, but they've been broken. And it's hard to trust
Yeah.
somebody who hasn't been broken and come through it before. So I'm so thankful
Yeah.
you're out there changing lives every day. I'm thankful for you being here as well. So hey, thanks so much for being here today. Before you go, would you hit that subscribe button so that future episodes come right to you? Thanks so much, and I'll see you next time.